Hello, I'm Dane, and this is Dan Explains. Someone sent me a paper recently that he said disproves Einstein. I'm not going to critique the paper here, but if you watch my channel for a while, you'll know I'm a firm believer in both the special theory of relativity and the general one. So, well, I didn't exactly find his arguments very convincing. Now, I've explained many of the concepts presented by Einstein on my channel before, and I actually plan to do updated versions of many of them in the future because, well, some of those videos are too cringy to watch. But they're still up if you do want to watch them. However, this exchange made me realize that I've never touched on why we needed the added complexity of Einstein. Why couldn't we just have stuck with Isaac Newton's good old laws? Let me explain why. Isaac Newton had a lot of brilliant theories, all of which fit very nicely with the observed world. He wasn't the only physicist at the time, though. It wasn't Isaac Newton's laws of motion that endangered his ideas. In fact, it was a total lack of evidence for a theory he didn't come up with, or even believe in, that put the final nail in the coffin when Einstein released his theory of special relativity 2 centuries later. That theory was called the ether theory. There were two camps among physicists in Newton's day. People who believed that the light was a particle, or the people who believed that light was a wave. Newton liked the idea of light being a particle because it fit nicely with his laws of motion. The people who envisioned light as a wave, like Christian Huygens, postulated if light was a wave, it needed a medium to move as a wave through. That medium Huygens called the ether. It seemed logical since every wave we've seen up to that point needed a substance to be propagated through, like air or water. Newton didn't like this idea because according to his laws of motion, objects in motion should stay in motion unless acted on by another object. If the ether was made out of anything at all, then the planets and stars should all spiral in on one another due to friction with the ether. People like to think that after Newton came up with his laws of motion, that everything was hunky-dory until Einstein came along. That wasn't the case, however. Newton and his contemporaries knew that his laws of motion could not explain the refraction and diffraction of light. Ether wave theory was on thin ice at the time as well, since, at least with their understanding of waves, the ether couldn't properly account for the polarization of light. To fix this, Newton grudgingly combined the two theories in his third book of optics. But Newton didn't think the ether transported light. He thought it transported heat, and that it was sending vibrations faster than light that were interacting with the light particle, and that explains refraction and diffraction. This theory stuck for a century until someone named Thomas Young figured out that light particles were not required to explain the polarization of light if the waves in the ether medium were transverse waves rather than longitudinal waves, as Newton-Huygens had assumed. So, at this point, Newton's particle theory of light was dead. But his laws of motion were still in motion. What was that? As time went on, the properties of the ether got more and more constrained to the point that pretty much had to have the properties of a supersubstance. And by a supersubstance, I mean super in the same way Superman compares to a regular man. Eventually, the only ether that could fit observation was a stationary one, which would give the universe an absolute rest frame. This would mean that experiments could be devised that would determine how fast the Earth is going through the ether. Tests with light were done in the late 1800s that should have turned up positive results. But they didn't. In the 1890s, Hendrik Lorentz came up with a fix called a Lorentz transformation, whereby objects in motion relative to the ether would change size, making the ether experiments give a null result. These are the same transformations used by Einstein a few years later in his theories of relativity. No one would notice these size changes because us and all the measuring tools would change in size with the experiment. Using this new toolkit, Einstein realized ether could be disposed of altogether, but not without some consequences. However, the details of those consequences are too numerous to cover in this video. So, please like and subscribe to my channel for more. Thank you for watching, and please ding the bell to get notified when I post new videos. Also, please support me on Patreon, link in the description. The more people support me, the more time I can dedicate to making videos like this one. So, until next time, have a great week.